Let's go, girls. Welcome to Talk Wealthy to Me. I'm Michelle Taylor, founder of Women in Wealth. From breaking money myths to building wealth and achieving financial freedom, we're here to empower you to create your own path. Talk Wealthy. Now, join the conversation and let's change the way women think and feel about money. Okay, ready? Today's guest understands that in this market, great investments aren't just about location or numbers on a spreadsheet. They're about experiences. Because in a world of short-term rentals, design can quite literally drive revenue. Becky Jones is an interior designer specializing in short-term rental properties, helping investors transform ordinary, boring spaces into unforgettable guest experiences that stand out online and stay booked. Originally from South Texas and now in Kentucky, Becky brings a unique perspective to every property that she touches, combining her background in photography with strategic design to create spaces that are beautiful and marketable and memorable. She views every property through the lens of listing photos first, understanding exactly what makes someone stop scrolling and hit book now. From minimizing functionality and durability to creating emotional connection through thoughtful details, Becky helps investors build properties that serve both the bottom line and guest experience. As both an investor and a mom, she understands the balance between creating profitable properties and designing spaces that feel warm, intentional, and memorable. We're diving into the business side of short-term rentals, the psychology behind why guests choose one property over another, and how design actually impacts profitability, and what women need to know if they're considering real estate investing as part of their wealth building strategy. Becky, welcome to Talk Wealthy to Me. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I feel like I start every episode saying this, but it's so true. So I don't even care anymore. You're going to be thrilled to learn all of the great things that we are about to talk about with my very dear friend, guest, Becky Jones. Welcome to Talk Wealthy to Me. I am so excited that you're here.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
You guys, Becky has reinvented herself and had so many fantastic ideas. And I just think that the wealth of knowledge that you have and I think can share with us is going to be such a treat. So as we kick this off, would you be so kind to tell us about you, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Becky Jones, and I am an interior designer. I do virtual design specifically for Airbnb investors, otherwise known as short-term rentals. So this has become more than a full-time job, and I absolutely love it. I get to be really creative, and I'm lucky enough to have designed some of the top performing properties across the country. So at any given time, it's so exciting, but I have properties going on literally coast to coast. Like right now I have one on the coast of Oregon, and it's exactly the same time I have another one going on the coast of Maine, Florida. It is wild and crazy. I can't believe the journey and just kind of how this business has evolved, but I am incredibly blessed, incredibly lucky, and it's ever evolving, ever changing, and always keeps me on my toes. So tons of fun.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love so much is we talk all the time on the podcast about finding what you love and then finding a way to make that give you the life that you want. And I think for anybody listening that when you hear interior design, they may initially think, okay, well, then that has to be local. What I love about what you've done is you are really a go-to with a national presence around short-term rentals. So it's a niche or a new part of, the industry, if you will. And you've kind of taken what you love and now made yourself an expert and a hot commodity. And that I think is so valuable and something that, bears talking about over and over again. So everybody listening, I'm sure you guys have either stayed at an Airbnb or know about someone that owns one. And we're going to get into kind of the reasons that may be attractive, especially building out wealth in a portfolio. But in that same conversation, what I'd love for you to kind of talk through is, this market, especially during COVID, I think it really, boomed. And now so many people are scooping up short-term rentals, especially with the interest rates being as low as they were a couple of years ago. And now what we're seeing is oversaturation. So myself specifically with clients that got into it are saying, it was great. Now I don't have as many bookings. And I think what you do solves that problem because in a world of sameness, the objective is always to be different. And the way that you do that is by curating a space that feels special, unique, because those are going to stay booked in a world of beige and boring. So how did you come up with this idea? Was it because of that? Was it something else? What led you to doing this and serving this market in this way?
Yeah, so a lot of people bought short-term rentals just a few years ago. Interest rates were super low, and all they had to do was literally just put it up on Airbnb, and they were making money. It was new, it was exciting, and it was cheapy cheap. And now it's really evolved into a hospitality business. And people can't just do it as a little hobby and just throw it up there and hire a cleaner. Like now, the game has absolutely changed, and now it's how many amenities can we, shove into this Airbnb? Like the luxury properties are the ones that are performing really well. And so we need to make them stand out. They do kind of have to be over the top. And our hospitality has to be like the top of the game. Those are the ones that are actually performing incredibly well. They're still outperforming all the other ones. So while certain markets, I will say that, while certain markets can be oversaturated, the ones that are playing to win are absolutely like crushing it. And they're making this an income, not just a tax write-off. A lot of my clients, every single one of them really, are buying it for tax benefits, bonus depreciation. Every one of them are high income earners in multiple different industries, and they want that tax benefit at the end of the year. But they also know that to get that and to then make money at having this Airbnb and this property, they're going to have to put some cash in, and they're going to have to really treat it as a business. Those are the ones that are actually performing incredibly well, and they're really weeding out the other ones who are, they didn't want to put any money into it. They're dated,
It's
they're
just a
just kind of
spot.
basic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when these were kind of just all popping up during COVID and all of that, where you would stay and yeah, there was no amenities, there was no luxury component. And now you go in and there's like a welcome basket and there's like a gift card to a restaurant down the street. It's in a hot tub and a sauna and all of the things. And we use the term like Instagrammable, right? For bachelorette parties or girls' weekends, those kind of things allow people to charge a premium and are going to make your property get booked so much quicker. And I love that you talked about the investment side of this and making it a business, because we're definitely going to get into that. How did you find yourself in this world? Did you set out to say, I'm going to focus on short-term rentals, or did you evolve into it?
Oh my gosh. So, I grew up, when I had young kids, this was years ago, but I was watching Fixer Upper and just looking at
Best
Joanna
show.
Gaines
Best
thinking,
show.
oh my gosh,
Yep.
if I could I would just want to renovate my house one day. And, just kind of dreaming about that. So fast forward to right before COVID, and got our first house and started renovating, and it was so much fun. And during COVID, this is just like a funny story, but during COVID, while there was all this gloom and doom, I was sharing on Instagram, just, hey, we're tearing out flooring and we're painting walls today and stuff. And so it was just this little like bright spot of cheer amidst all the gloom and doom. During that same time, there was a builder that was kind of watching what I was doing, and he was like, hey, you obviously have the eye for this. Would you want to come and work with our clients for selections for remodels and new construction, additions for homes and stuff? So I was doing kitchens, bathrooms, and I really got to learn like what's behind the walls and how to do remodel selections, and just learned, just kind of jumped in head first, like, here we go. And I learned a ton. But what I found, especially right after all of those years of Fixer Upper, if people didn't get their white kitchens, they were
Oh my
looking for their
gosh.
white kitchens, and they were agonizing over what white paint color to choose for their walls.
And there's a
And
million.
so, yeah, so I was doing like white kitchens, white bathrooms, white walls, and it was great experience, but I was kind of getting bored. And so at the same time, we had friends that were building a home, and that particular friend is very entrepreneurial, and he was building an ADU, an auxiliary dwelling unit above his garage so that he could put it on Airbnb.
I want
He
to
did
pause
that.
you. I want to pause
Yeah,
you right there because I think that it's important for you guys to understand what that is. Um, do you want to explain it? So basically, when you have a property, it's like an additional, it can be
living
listed
space.
separate. Yep. So
Uh-huh.
in a very simple term, what would you say besides that? It's usually on your property, totally
Could be a
separate.
mother-in-law suite, could be a little apartment. This one's very much at their house. It's very much like a little apartment that was above the garage. So they had a separate entrance, and he put it up on Airbnb and was doing really well. He would just pop up there, clean it in between guests, and he was just raking in the money because he was already paying for his mortgage and everything else. It didn't change the bills.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so
Additional
I just
income.
thought, yeah, I thought that was so incredibly smart. And with my house that we had just bought, my basement had a separate entrance. And I started, it's like the wheels started turning like, hey, what if we're not using this space? What if we made it a little 1 bedroom? And so renovated that into an ADU and it put it on Airbnb, and this little 1 bedroom, little kitchenette, little living room, and 1 bathroom paid the mortgage for more than 2 years, literally. And we weren't using this space. So the kids would go to bed. We have our bedrooms upstairs. So even though we had small children, we made it work. They learned to kind of, not scream and yell and cause a ruckus when we had Airbnb guests for the most part. I mean, we put that on the listing also, said, hey, we have kids and stuff, but house is quiet by about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. So anyway, it worked for our family. It wouldn't work for everybody, but it really worked for mine. And I would highly recommend it because, like I said, it paid the mortgage for 2 years. And this was just people coming in and out of town, mostly on the weekends. And that was like literally $98 a night, 120 maybe on a weekend.
It's
That's it.
so insane. And this is where, I speak to this about looking for additional sources of income to help. And this is one of those things, like you said, if you are in a situation where you have a room or an opportunity for an ADU on your property, separate entrance, all of that, it's a no-brainer because you're using an asset you already own to pay for itself. And I mean, that's such a cheat code.
Yeah, so that was my first intro into Airbnb and the Airbnb world. And I was able to use color and just kind of like be a little more fun with it because it was going to be an Airbnb. And I thought to myself, and I said out loud, be careful what you say out loud because
Speak into the
what is
world.
it?
Yep. Be
I
careful
was
what
like,
you
what is that phrase?
be
Like,
careful what
what
you
you
wish
speak
for.
about, you bring about. What you speak about, you bring about.
Yeah, it's true.
So be careful what you say out loud. But I said, I wish I could just design Airbnbs. That would be so much fun. I could be creative and use color and it would be fun. And after designing all these white kitchens and white houses and stuff, that just sounded like fun. So lo and behold, the next week, I get my first Airbnb opportunity. And unbeknownst to me, this gal was actually a hit realtor in the Smoky Mountains. And we got through the project. She and her husband loved me. She was like, girl, there is room for you in this space if you want to do it. And if you want to do Airbnbs, she said, I will recommend you. And I've got clients that need design. Well, I'd never done it before except for this one property. I'd never picked out the furniture. I didn't know what I was getting into. Because doing remodels is very different than furnishing an entire home. So I just slowly built up spreadsheets and links and all the things, and now this business has grown exponentially. And I would say that I couldn't imagine where it would be, but I could because I'm actually a really big dreamer. I pray really big. I pray really specifically, and I knew in my being that I was made to do something really big. I just didn't know exactly what that was. So now to see this come to fruition just in a handful of years is wild and crazy. And it's like, I knew in my heart that something big was going to happen.
Here
So
we are.
here
And
we are.
and I think that, going back to something you said a few minutes ago about the tax strategy. So for all of you listening, the reason that short-term rentals are so desirable is because it affords you a loophole in the tax code that allows you to not be a real estate professional per se, but still get a tax break through cost segregation studies because of short-term rental status. So it basically is just a tool that you may not even know is out there. So to oversimplify it, a cost segregation study allows an engineering team to come into a property and depreciate something much faster than what a normal schedule would look like. So instead of it being almost 30 years, it can be done all in the beginning, which is a great hack, which is why so many people talk about real estate being a tool to build wealth. Because then you take that property that now is income generating and you take the tax savings if you're smart, and then you can go and buy another property if you want to really build something big. So I think that helps support the business that you're growing, and it will always be a thing. Short-term rentals, I don't think are going anywhere, especially with the passing of the Big Beautiful Bill. This was bonus depreciation was extended, so it was great for your industry. For anybody that's thinking about getting into this, or they're listening to this and thinking, well, I have an Airbnb that is down the street from Disney and in an area where there's 700 others, what are like the quick kicks? Otherwise, or I should say, besides hiring someone like you, but what are some of the things that you recommend to people as they're building this out that will allow them to stand out?
I think that the game has changed so much that you're going to have to hire really good design, and you're going to have to be willing to spend money on it. Not just the designer, but, wallpaper and wall treatments and, barrel saunas and hot tubs and pools and all the things. I mean, they cost money. But I can say, after the bonus depreciation, the tax benefits, everything, my clients are coming back year after year because it was worth it. And they're seeing the return on investment.
They're busy
for the money that they're putting in. Mm-hmm. And, some of my clients are making, $200,000 to $400,000 a year just with their Airbnbs. Now, those are big and they're in certain markets and all of the right things, there's a little formula, but yeah, it can definitely, you can make back that money. I think the important thing that I like to think through also, and this doesn't apply to the Disney market. The Disney market is like
a whole beast.
All on its, I know,
yeah.
it's all on its own. But what I like to think through too is like, what are the areas that you're considering purchasing, and you would be, if you want to exit that property and you want to sell it, there's two ways you're going to do it. You're either going to sell it to an investor and you're going to show all the money that the Airbnb has made. And an investor is going to come in and say, oh my gosh, it's turnkey. It's ready to go. I don't have to do anything to it. Look at the money that it's made before. This is what I want. Then you're going to sell it to an investor, or you always need to be able to pivot and sell it to a second home or back to a primary residence. So whatever we do to these Airbnbs, and this is just my take on it, not all designers do this, but in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, is it able to pivot back to a primary residence? If so, what does that look like? And how can we kind of keep it classy and make sure that we're purchasing in areas that would either be a second home, so maybe it would be next to a ski resort, a lake house, things like that, where somebody would say, a primary residence owner would say, oh, I want that for my family to enjoy, or would somebody want to live there? So
that's a great thing to consider, because some things, and for any of you guys that are listening that, don't live in Florida or aren't familiar with the market in Orlando, if you just peruse some of the listings, it's wild. And I think it would be really hard for them. They would have to kind of deconstruct everything to be able to sell it back to someone as a second home, because it's wild, like Star Wars rooms and Mickey Mouse pools, and it's all fun and games now. But that's a great.
And for the record, that's not my jam. So don't call me anybody for
doing something like that.
I just finished a Disney themed, and it was like such a challenge for me, because that's just not my jam. But they are amazing, and there are designers, if you want something like that and something really bold and ostentatious, like there are designers that just do that, and they are phenomenal. So
and I love that you just said that, because there's someone for everyone, and it's all about finding your right people. And, listen, I think every girl has a little bit of an interior designer in her heart. I think I've said to you in prior conversations, if I wasn't doing this, I would love to, get into like a world like yours. I think it's so fun to take something and make it pretty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you think just because you reorganized your bedroom when you were 14, when your parents weren't listening and you're moving furniture, doesn't mean that you're equipped to really stand out in a crowd. So find your people that are going to make this investment one that's worthwhile. Don't do
Mm-hmm.
anything that you're going to have to take on a lot of work. People will say to me all the time, I love this idea, but I don't want to be a landlord. Okay, there's a way to
Mm-hmm.
do it, but you have to know how to differentiate between what looks good on someone else and what's going to feel good to you. So find the right people. And okay, so how did you what did you envision your life looking like when you were younger? I love to ask guests this. How did you grow up? What was your relationship with money? Did you set out to be a business owner? You're in a very exciting season of your life. You're divorced. You have kiddos. You're doing all of these great things. How did we get here? Take us back to 8-year-old Becky. What did
Oh my
life look
gosh.
like?
I think I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. There are many, what others would say, like failed attempts. I don't think that anything is a failed attempt. I think that you're on a journey and you learn something from each and every little,
Pivot.
pivot and yeah, attempt
Yeah.
and, all of the different things. So, um, yeah, I think when I think back to younger me, I'm like, oh my gosh, she would be so proud of, she would just like idolize the person that I've turned into and just, be like, whoa, that is so cool. So yeah, that does make me proud when I think of that. And then I think I'm always working towards making, 80-year-old Becky,
Yeah.
proud too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how am I taking care of older Becky, and an 80-year-old Becky now with the choices that I make now and the investments and things like that, right? So you and I have talked about that
Yep.
before, but yeah, I think younger me would be really proud. At 19, I was working for a couple who had a photography studio, and so they decided to go open up another photography studio a few hours away, and they were like, "You can totally take over this one." I was 19. And they were
Scared
like, "You
and
have the
like,
eye for
okay.
it. You'll be fine." Yeah, they're like, "Here you go. Like, it'll be great. We'll be back. They'll be here to support you. Okay, see you later." And I was kind of thrown in the deep end of the, paying big girl bills too because it was a studio, and so I was paying, rent and the electric bill and the internet bill, and this was before, yeah, and this was before this shows how fast time has flown by and how things have evolved. But this is when MySpace and Facebook were just getting started. So you didn't advertise on there. I remember a guy came in, like door to door salesman kind of guy came in, and I got an ad in the phone book.
Oh my
And
God.
like, you
Yes.
can't even believe that was barely like 20 years ago,
I,
but it was.
well, and imagine asking our kids if they knew what a phone book was. But I remember
Exactly.
sitting at the table with my dad, who was an entrepreneur, and he'd have like the Yellow Pages guy come
Yes.
over and he was talking to him and pitching him. And
Yep.
now those, anyone listening knows we're
They're obsolete.
dinosaurs, which is crazy. But yes, go
Yes.
ahead.
Yes. So, yeah. So, yeah, that was it was super stressful, especially as a 19-year-old. Photography is actually really seasonal, as are most businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would have a really good month and then I would have a really low month. And it was so much for me to try to navigate that. And, it was like I have a lot and then I have nothing. So when we talk about the,
The
relationship
roller
with
coaster.
money,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So like this actually played into like, we have a lot, we have nothing. And so got married young, moved up to Kentucky, had multiple different jobs and things like that. But again, it just kind of followed me. It's like we have some, we have nothing. It's like, you get your tax return back and then you like splurge for something, and or you maybe put stuff on a credit card knowing that your tax return is coming and you have plans to pay it off, but then you're like, well, let's just pay off like half and then go on vacation. And
Yeah.
so it's just this like
Cycle.
have not, yep. And so I think that really followed me. During the divorce, I just pulled my business finances aside. I had just started the Airbnb stuff not too long before that. And I was able for the first time ever to watch my money grow. And I think that was really empowering because I had never had a savings account that had more than a few $1,000s in it. And so I was able to just watch that grow incrementally and just not touch it. And part of that was fear of like the unknown. And, getting a divorce is always unfortunate in my opinion. And, yes, I'm thriving now, but it's still just an unfortunate situation.
Hard
Yeah, it
season.
was really hard. Yep. And so, but I do think seeing money in my bank account and knowing that if I can make it once, I can make it again was so empowering to me as a newly single mom. And
Did you
yeah,
did you feel equipped growing up? Like, what were the conversations like with your parents? Did you grow up in a traditional middle class family? Did you feel like you guys, had a little bit more, or maybe scarcity mindset? What did that look like? And do you feel like that impacted how you approached the photography business or now your business?
yeah. So when I was younger, my dad was an engineer, and so we made fairly good money. We were a family of seven, so sorry, eight, because I'm the oldest of six kids. So we had six kids in the house. Yep. And but then around high school, my dad lost his job. It was like the whole like crash and all the things happened, right? And so couldn't find a job, started like, blowing through his 401k like over time, and it just over time it was depleted, and he ended up getting a job at our church and taking care of finances and office things, but of course was making much less working for a church than what he was working as an engineer. And so I really see the Lord's hand in all of those things, but it did kind of lend to that we don't have.
So it was
Yeah, so
And it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like that's one of those things that scares people away from starting a business or being an entrepreneur, is kind of the inconsistency in the beginning. But maybe living through that is what made you realize that you can make it through it and you can navigate it, and it didn't scare you, which allowed you to go and take these big leaps. So something that could have been scary, you instead used as gunpowder to build this great big thing.
yeah. And I think the other thing too is like I've lived on very little, and I know that I can live on very little. Um, and I wouldn't be afraid to do that again if I needed to. So knowing that I have really been intentional about keeping my living expenses very low, and I know you talk about this on your podcast all the time, but I have been very intentional about letting my living expenses stay as low as humanly possible so that if I have a low month, I'm okay. Like and so it's not feast and famine. It's just this like steady piece of, yes, we can have a high month, but that doesn't mean I go spend a bunch of stuff, and buy things and you blow it. It's like, no, we get to sit there and we get to watch it, and we get to watch it grow. We get to watch it hang out in the bank account. And now I'm moving, I hired you, and we're going to move
Investing, yeah.
money around and have it work for me. And that's exciting too, because that's a whole new world that, you know,
Yeah.
past the savings account. It's like now I get to experience something totally different and learn a lot, because I'm excited to learn more about investments and things like that. But yeah, it's a journey.
It's so much fun. And you just said two things that I think are so important to come back to. One, how do you get off the roller coaster? So for anyone listening that's thinking, okay, yeah, I want to take this leap, but I'm terrified. Give me some tactical advice on how to do it. And Becky's right. When you think about fixed expenses, I challenge everyone, don't think about, the gym membership and all of the things that are technically you could do without, right? So when you're thinking through fixed expenses, you want to make sure that that is what's dictating how much cash you have. And as long as you have that buffer, you should be fine. If you're just starting out and you see that huge win, then I would say take a little piece of it and celebrate it and have fun, because what's the point otherwise? It's so hard. But you want to get in the consistent habit of like paying yourself a salary. So for anyone that's listening that's a business owner, but they're an S Corp, they're already paying themselves a salary. But if you're not, and you're still growing and it's all flow through to you as a sole proprietor, still get in the habit of paying yourself a monthly budget or a salary from one account to the next, and learn to live on that until there's plenty there that you can give yourself a raise and all of that. But even in the best and highest of times when you've got tons of wins coming through, you want to make sure that have the fun, but also be intentional, because once you start putting that money to work for you and you see what is possible, like I always say, you don't save yourself to wealth. You need to invest it and make it work for you. And also teach others. And that's something that I love in our conversations, that you're very transparent and talk about money with your kids. And we were joking because, if your one of your kiddos is like, well, yeah, I can invest, but maybe not invest that much because I want to do this thing. But you're having the conversations, which I think is so important. How did that all evolve? Did you just innately know, okay, I'm going to teach you how to do this? Or was it a struggle to get there and think like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm equipping them because I wasn't equipped?
Oh my gosh, I feel like this is a constant battle in my head and and the thing is, it's funny because I'll go, we'll like go on a vacation or something and then I'm like, okay, that's it. We're not spending any more money because it's like it's my internal stuff that's coming out of
Yeah.
like I just spent money. Okay, now we we're
Yep.
not going shopping.
Yep.
We're not going out to eat. And so I don't want them to to absorb all of that. Like, it's the same like feast and famine. I'm like, no, that's not what's happening. But what I am now instilling in them is like, okay, here's your allowance, and then but you're required to put $200 in savings every month, and you have to have a goal for the savings account. So this is just something I came up with recently, but it was like, what's the goal for the savings account? Because then they're excited about it. And I said, now we're going to get to watch that money grow, and you're going to get closer to your goal. And so the same opportunity that I got to watch the money grow and to learn the habit of putting it away and having money, I think having and holding on to money is a whole other skill than making money.
I agree 100%.
Because you can make money and grow that skill and then not be able to hold it and keep it.
Got to do all of it.
It ends up just,
slipping through your fingers.
Yep.
And another thing that I love for you to kind of think on is, I'm sure at this point, everyone listening can tell that you're a visionary and a dreamer and a hustler. The one thing you've done, well, one of many, that I think you've set yourself up for, a very successful career, is you don't just focus on one business. Within your design mind, you've come up with other income streams and ways to, make it all work. And it's still in the same vein. They're not maybe like twins, but they're siblings, and they all kind of feed each other. How did you realize that that's something that would have been, or that was something that would be beneficial to you? For anyone listening, like that they've gotten one piece of their business okay, and then how do you encourage people to start thinking about those like offshoots that can also generate income?
Yeah, I think my brain is just wired that way. I think if I had a superpower, it's like coming up with business ideas, because I can talk to anybody and just naturally in conversation, I'm like, have you considered this? Have you considered that? You should reach out to these people and offer this service and build on it. So I do think that that's just something that is in me. But I think I'm also thinking, what are some other opportunities? Think outside the box, let's come up with something different. Let's come up with something that we haven't thought of before. And so when you're open to new ideas and you're speaking that way and praying that way, like other opportunities come and
They find you.
recognize it because you're trained to be open to new opportunities. There's some like mantras and affirmations that I repeat. And one of them is like, I'm open to new opportunities.
I love that.
So even just like saying that, somebody will be in conversation with me and I'll say, oh, like, how about this? Or why don't we connect? Because I'd love to work with a builder and build from scratch short-term rentals, and I'll bring you the buyers. Like those are some things that just naturally come to mind as I think of diversifying my income, never ever having having all my eggs in one basket. I always want to have a diverse, portfolio and
offering, because if something crazy happened in one aspect of your business, there are still these other things. And I think that allows and enables people to again, get off the emotional roller coaster of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You've
And I
got
think too, like if we see now the last few years, oh, well, before, just 4 years ago, you just buy a property, put some furniture in it, throw it on Airbnb, you're successful. Well, the game has changed. So if that is no longer working, then what I'm doing right now, I can't ignore the fact that what I'm doing right now and how things are operating right now is probably not going to be the way that it is the next 4 years. So,
that's
although
so
this is
smart.
really incredibly successful and a lot of fun and all the things, am I going to be doing exactly this at 65? Probably not. So, what are the next things and how are things moving and shifting? And like AI is coming into play. And there's just so many different things happening that I think you kind of have to be on your toes if you're going to be an entrepreneur. I can't imagine with how fast the world is moving that anything that we're doing right now is going to be successful in even 15 years.
Evolution in your space is something that you all need to be thinking about. And I remember once having clients that were very successful in like one of the um, multi-level marketing companies several years ago. And if you guys aren't aware, like there's like the person, and then they've got this whole team of people underneath them that basically they're upsell or whatever. You can tell I have never dabbled in this world, but they had, built something and they were like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And we're living this huge life. And the like founder of the company, or maybe like one of the first big dogs of this company, was also a client. And I remember being in both those meetings and that person saying, oh, this will be gone in a couple of years. What people need to understand is not to focus on the here and now, but you need to already be preparing your people, building the team so that they can move to the next thing. You're teaching them how to be in this world, not necessarily be married to a product. And inevitably it happened. And those clients didn't save or do invest any of the things that they had, and it became a big issue. And I think what you just said is so true. Even though something's working now, the world is changing and we don't know what it's going to look like. So always try and be 3 steps ahead. And it's hard doing that in this world. Mm-hmm. And with AI, which I also would love for us to touch on, please hear this one thing, you guys. AI is a tool. It is not meant to replace experts and professionals. And it fits well if it is serving a purpose as a tool. But I will use it I could give a million examples in my world in wealth management. But for you, one of my best friends is an interior designer, and I always pick her brain about ideas. And then obviously I have you. So the resources are there. And I will never forget this one night. It was really late. And I was looking at my entryway table and I thought, what? I need to refresh this, right? What do I do? But it was late, so I wasn't going to text anybody. So I took a picture and put it onto AI. And what that came back with was absurd. And I think that, again, asking AI a question, if someone's doing it on their own and saying, what is the textbook answer to how high a picture should be hung from the floor? That's a great way to use it as a tool, right? But to go into something and say, this is this room, design it. Guys, that's where you find the professionals. You find the Becky Joneses of the world to say, make this amazing. Don't waste time. Just because something can do something doesn't mean it should. Use it as a tool. You're not going to get the human touch. And I think evolving again, maybe AI doesn't realize that all white in a house isn't anyone's jam anymore. And if you're listening and it's your jam, that's great. But if you're not, like, things have changed, and that's where human beings know how to do that. And I think someone like you can say, oh, this site that people get their rugs from, you may be getting served this on Instagram or social media or your friends, but the quality is terrible. The service is terrible. This is where you need to go. You're never going to find that unless you work with an expert. So I think what you're doing is really a shortcut to getting to the end result, and people just need to rely on you or someone like you instead of trying to figure it out themselves.
Yeah, I think so too. But I also see AI as a tool, and I'm like, okay, how do I need to be implementing this?
How
and
you
changing
use
and
it to your
shifting things?
benefit.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless and things are constantly evolving and changing. So I'm and that's a challenge because it's like I have my way of doing things. It's been successful. So now to learn something else, implement something else, change my process, like it's a lot. But and I do feel that pressure sometimes. And I'm like, oh man, being a
Always
business
learning.
owner is not
Always
for the faint of
changing. Things
heart.
are, yeah. Well, and that's just it, right? It's fill your toolbox, whether you're talking about design or wealth building or a business or, birthday party planning, whatever. Fill your box with all the tools. AI has to be one of them because if you're not implementing it, you're going to get left behind. But it's a tool, it's not the expert, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, what's next for you?
Oh my gosh. I have a few different things in the works right
Yep.
now, so stay tuned. And then I don't know, I'm just in this like really cool place in life where yeah, I enjoy what I do. I have a pretty flexible schedule. I get to travel for work as well. I get to visit some of these Airbnbs, and I've got an incredible team and work with incredible people. And my kids are bigger now, so there's a freedom that comes with that too. I've got a 16-year-old who's driving and 14-year-old about to be 15, so he's going to get his permit this summer. It's just like and then I have an 11-year-old, and I don't know, it's interesting to see like the versions of me and the chapters in life. And now this one's just a whole different, it feels like almost a whole different book. Like I'm in a trilogy, and this is
Oh, it's
like
so
a
good.
totally different book than raising little kids and you know
Running a
so
photography location.
exactly. And you know what? The other thing I didn't mention earlier, but the photography, all was successful in its own way, and I used that skill and the skill of working with people and so many different things were benefits of that, but also that photography mind and brain and the way that I kind of pick things apart comes into play now with the Airbnbs. And I see everything in listing photos. That's what we're selling, is listing photos. And why are people going to book this place? And so as my photography brain has come into play here, it's been an incredible asset. And so it's just neat to see every one of those skills and attempts and business ideas come into play and give me the skills and the know-how that I have now. And we were just on the phone the other day, and I don't remember what it was I was saying, but I was like, also that just came out of my mouth is pretty impressive because I've learned so much in the last few years just about business and investments and S corps and all this stuff that I didn't know before. So if I would say to anybody who is looking at starting a business, like you can learn anything and you would be surprised how quickly you will pick up stuff and how fast you can learn all of these new things. And you don't have to know it all. You just have to get started. If I could say if I could say anything to young entrepreneurs that just have that dream and that goal and they don't know what it's going to look like, I was there just a few years ago. I remember my daughter was going to go into um, kindergarten, and I was like internally kind of freaking out because I was like, what am I going to do with my life when she goes to kindergarten? And I have all this time, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it all came together. And I just say, like, just get started, do something. You can do anything. Dream big, pray big, be
Talk
bold,
big. Yes. And you've said that
talk
so
big,
many
speak it into
times.
existence.
And it could sound crazy, but it works. It really, really
It
works.
totally works.
And
And the other thing, I read so many books and did so much personal development from the time I was 30. I'm 41 now, but from the time I was 30, it's like I just like leveled up. I was like, okay, anti-aging skincare. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to read books. I'm going to listen to Audible, and I'm going to talk about affirmations. And yeah, it sounds a little kooky until you really get into it and you're like, wait, this
this
stuff
is
works.
working.
I'm starting to believe it
Yeah.
about myself, and you see all of that come to fruition later.
What a
So
time to be alive, right? Because, and I know, college and formal education is so important for so many things. But I think this has to be part of the conversation for anybody that has young kids that they're speaking to, whether they're your children or nieces or whomever. Like, I feel like for the first time in probably decades, people can see a life that looks successful to them without it being the traditional channels of getting there. And I think the true skills are what you just mentioned. It's no one has it all figured out. Nobody, even the experts, because you always need to be learning, but you have access to amazing information like never before. You have visibility to people that are doing great things like never before because of social media. You have the opportunity to get into rooms with people that are doing things that you want to do like never before. And it doesn't have to come from, well, if I want to make, six figures, I need to go to an Ivy League school. And, it wasn't like that necessarily when we were younger, but like our parents, and you see those things on social media where it's like traditional school is giving you the skills, but they're not necessarily teaching kids, I would say in all scenarios, to be dreamers and thinkers and visionaries. And that is, it makes me so inspired for what is coming for these future generations, because the sky is truly the limit. And you're a perfect example of that in this trilogy. Like, who knows what the third book is going to be if this is the second. Okay, as we wrap up, I think one of the best little tidbits you can give somebody that they can maybe take with them would be if someone's interested in short-term rentals and you were like, if you're going to do this one time, where does somebody start? Do they look at, I know you said market and all of that, but is this something that you're like, of all of the properties I design, as long as you find a spot that'll have room for 4 people and a pool, you're going, like, that's where you would start? What do you think is like the one easiest place to be successful? What does it have to have?
So you're either going to go really big or really little. That's basically, yep. So it's either a really cool big place that is going to be
experience,
family vacations, and it's got a pool and it's got all the cool amenities and a huge game room and all the things and lots of bedrooms and king beds and en suites with bathrooms attached, right? It's going to be all the things. Or it's going to be a sweet high-end honeymoon cabin with a hot tub and a barrel sauna and the other thing I'll say is you have to have a view. You have to have a view.
That's great.
People will pay more for a view. They will, I just got back from Turks and Caicos and I picked a property solely based on the view, and I would go back tomorrow and I would pay the premium rate that I paid tomorrow because we woke up every day, my girlfriends and I, and we sat and we enjoyed that view and we tried to take in every tiny detail of that view and just spent all of our time appreciating that. And funny enough, like the interior of the main house didn't even have air conditioning. We didn't care.
Because you got the view.
We were so happy. There was other little things about the Airbnb that were a little bit quirky and a little bit dated and all the things. We did not care because the pool, the view, and the experience as a whole was amazing. So I would say people will pay for the view. Get the view.
And either really small or really big. Don't go into a community where there's a lot of condos and think you're going to get one and it's going to be this game changer for you. It may
it's not going to be a showstopper.
Help some,
if you can have some space. And here's the other thing about short-term rentals. I could go on for a whole nother podcast episode on this, but you have to really do your research. You need to work with somebody. You need to work with a realtor that knows short-term rentals and knows the permits for the area. If they do not know and you can't ask them a lot of questions and they don't have answers to all the different permit questions, then that's not the realtor for you.
I had a friend, and I don't want to get you off your train of thought, but I had a friend that found this great property and she thought they were going to short-term rent it out, Airbnb, whatever. And they couldn't. It wasn't allowed in like the area. And it was a big learning lesson. So great thing to mention. And then what was the next thing you were going to say?
Well, on that same note, what we're learning is most of my clients are now saying if it's anything having to do with a permit, it is contingent. The purchase is contingent on getting the permit. So they will wait. The seller will wait until the permit hearing and, securing that permit in place. And I don't start design. We don't start purchasing anything. everything's on hold until that permit is secured. So that would be one like huge, huge thing that I do want to mention. Find a real estate agent who understands short-term rentals. There's a few in every single, hot market.
Yeah.
If you want to go, instead of going to the really saturated markets, pick a little lake house that is, a lake a few hours from home that maybe not everybody knows about, but
enough people do.
That a lot of people really enjoy it. Something like that. Ski markets are similar where, it's not the biggest ski market that you've ever heard of. It's these little ones that are more local. And, those are the kind of properties that we're actually seeing perform really well because we are one of a few instead of one of many.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. Okay. So for everyone listening, where can they follow up with you, follow along on this journey, see your portfolio of work? I've seen a lot. It's absolutely show-stopping. Where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, so it's Becky Jones Branding, Becky Jones Branding on Instagram, BeckyJonesBranding.com. Same thing with Facebook. And yeah, there's a whole lot on there. And then, like I said, I have other things in the works.
Big things coming. That's right. And you guys, she's virtual. So that's one of the great things too, is don't ever feel like you're limited in this day and age and all the tools to somebody that's in your own neck of the woods. Find the person that you vibe with, whatever you want to call it, and pursue that. So thank you so much. I loved this conversation. I think that we kind of peeked behind the curtain of why short-term rentals can make sense for anybody building wealth, and whatever it looks like, stand out from the crowd, speak things into fruition, and bet on yourself. I say it all the time, but you're a perfect example of that. Thank you for spending some time with us. And as always, to the listeners, I appreciate you and am so grateful that you choose to spend a little bit of time with me every week. Let's continue the conversations and keep changing the way women think and feel about money together.